This is the Game Boy Advance Consolizer, a device that brings your favorite GBA titles to the big screen in glorious high definition. Now, the GBA Consolizer has been around for some time now. However, it recently received some updates which provides for a cleaner installation, as well as a killer new shell design that is completely free of any screws, courtesy of Laser Bear Industries. So, is this the definitive way to enjoy your Game Boy Advance titles on the big screen? Let's find out. Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Tito and welcome to another episode of Retro Renew. Today I am super excited to show you the newly updated version of the Game Boy Advance Consolizer. So what is the GBA Consolizer, you may be asking? Well, essentially this kit converts an original AGB Game Boy Advance into a home-like console that outputs a lagless, high-definition 720p video signal. It also incorporates a SNES controller port for use with first and third-party controllers, such as the wireless 8-bit Do ones, which is what I prefer to use. It's a fantastic kit, and I can't wait to show you everything it has to offer. As you may or may not know, Steven, or Woozle, designed the Game Boy Advance Consolizer kit. He also recently joined the team over at Pixel Effects, which is the company that recently released the N64 digital HDMI mod for the Nintendo 64. Now, Retro RGB did a fantastic interview with Woozle several years ago. It's really interesting, so definitely check it out if you want to learn more about the history of the Consolizer's development and about Woozle himself. I'll leave a link to it down below. And if you enjoy content like this, be sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel for plenty more retro gaming and modding videos just like this one. Alright, so in this video, I'm going to start off by showing you what's included in this kit. Then I'll demonstrate how to put it all together, review the features of the Consolizer, go over the pros and cons, and of course provide you with my overall thoughts. So going over the contents of the kit, the first item is really the heart of the entire mod, and that's this custom PCB with the Field Programmable Gate Array, or FPGA. This is what takes the GBA's video signal, converts it, and outputs it through HDMI into your television. This kit also includes a SNES controller port, which we will solder directly to the custom PCB. This here is the all-new custom flex cable, which we will need to solder directly to the GBA's CPU, not unlike a lot of the HDMI mods that I covered on this channel. Also on this panel is a 32-pin flex cable, as well as 2 flat wires. And because this kit is compatible with both 32 and 40-pin motherboard variations, an additional 40-pin flex cable is also included. Next, we have this really awesome 3D printed shell from Laser Bear Industries. The 3D print is extremely high quality, and it is designed to snap fit together without any screws, which I'll demonstrate in the installation portion of this video. And the last item included are the silicone feet, replacement capacitors, which are optional and should only be used if your current caps are leaking, a small switch and switch PCB, and lastly, this really fantastic DMG-inspired switch cover. Okay, so that's everything included in this kit. Now let me show you how to put it all together. Alright, to get started, we first need to extract the motherboard from this Game Boy Advance. It's the only thing we need from this donor. Remove the battery cover and all the exterior screws to remove the bottom shell. With the console open, remove the 3 Phillips screws securing the motherboard. Then delatch the LCD ribbon cable and then remove the motherboard. We now need to prep the board for the Consolizer mod. Start by desoldering the speaker. Then remove both battery terminals. Next, we need to remove the power switch. I like to first desolder this metal cover. And then gently lift off the switch body by heating each of the legs while gently prying up. Once removed, we need to bridge the left two pads. First, tin them up with some solder. I like to use a small piece of wire to bridge them together. And this is the final result. Next, we need to bridge the left three pins on the volume potentiometer to bypass the audio. Again, I'll be using a small piece of wire to accomplish this. And this is what it should look like. Now we need to remove the oscillating crystal. Per the instructions on GameTech US, this can simply be removed by carefully rocking it back and forth. Please do this carefully and don't just pull it off. Next, we need to remove the resistor R5. With some fresh solder on your iron, gently whisk it off as shown. Next comes the most difficult part of this mod. Remove the CPU flex cable from the panel, and then carefully align it with the pins on the GBA CPU as shown. It is extremely important to make sure that the CPU pins are precisely aligned with the pads on the flex cable. Remember, the flex should butt up against the pins and not overlap them. Once they are aligned, add some flux and tack it in place. I have absolutely no solder on my iron tip, and I was able to tack it in place with the existing solder on the CPU pins. I went ahead and tacked it here as well. Once the flex cable is secure, add a very small, and I mean minuscule amount of solder to your iron and begin to solder the flex cable as shown. I like to use a small sweeping motion and take my time. I do this little by little, adding the smallest amount of solder to my iron and gently going over the pins until I am satisfied with the solder joints. Remember, flux is your friend. Do not be afraid to use it. And this is the final result. Be sure to double check for any bridging between the pins before proceeding. Now that the hard part is done, go back and remove the two flat wires from the panel. Then solder one to the pad labeled 3.3 volt, and then the other to the pad labeled ground. Then connect the 3.3 volt wire to the positive battery terminal, and the ground to the negative battery terminal. And this is what it should look like. Next, grab the case and disassemble it. Grab the custom PCB and the SNES controller port. Place the SNES controller port into the PCB and then slide it into this part of the controller shell. This will help keep everything aligned as you solder the port in place. Once you solder in a couple pins, you can take it out and solder in the remaining ones. Once done, be sure to trim the legs. Great, now we need to assemble the power switch. First, let's install the LED. I'm using a leftover power LED from a Game Boy Pocket, which actually fits perfectly. Next, solder in the power switch. Then tin up the three pads and solder a wire to each. Moving over to the main PCB, you'll need to tin these three pads shown here. Then solder the wires from the power switch to this location. Here's how the wiring should look when completed. You can see where each wire goes looking at their color shown here. Now it's time to assemble. Place the included ribbon cable into the LCD connector as shown. Mine is a 40-pin model, so I'm using the ribbon cable for that. Then place the other side of the cable into the main PCB with the blue tab facing up. Then take the flex cable soldered to the CPU and connect it to the main PCB with the contacts facing down as shown. Next, we need to juggle the main PCB and the GBA motherboard and slot them into this part of the case. It's a bit cumbersome, but you'll know they're inserted correctly if the controller port and the link port are flush with their opening on the shell. Next, take the back plate and place it over the micro USB and mini HDMI port. It should snap into place. Once that's done, slot in the power switch into the shell. Then you can slide the Consolizer PCB and GBA motherboard into the main case body. Carefully slide it into the case, taking your time and making sure not to force anything. It should eventually wiggle into place. It's not too difficult if you take your time. Once everything is fully seated, this is what it should look like. All the ports, including the link port and headphone jack, should reside in their openings on the shell. Now you can snap on the top cover. Then install the switch cover, which I have to say looks simply amazing. It's a really nice touch. All that's left is to install the silicone feet, which you can stick at each of the 4 corners. And lastly, insert your favorite game, a controller, and enjoy. I have to say, this is certainly one of my favorite ways to play Game Boy Advance games. The convenience of using a full-size controller and the crisp image quality provides a fantastic home console experience, making for a really awesome package. I'm just really enjoying this kit immensely. Alright, now let's go over the features of the GBA Consolizer. Once the console is turned on, in order to access the settings menu, press down and select at the same time. Here, the first option I'll be going over is Picture Settings, where you can do several things. Selecting the smooth option allows you to adjust through several levels of smoothing that gives the game a very interesting and almost cartoonish look. I prefer the sharp pixels, but I can see the appeal of this option. Next, we have the zoom setting, and this is where things get interesting. The default setting is 4 times integer scaled, which as you can see leaves a small border around the image. This is the way I like to play the Consolizer at the moment. Moving it up to 4.5, the image now takes up the entire screen vertically. For those that want the largest image possible without any cropping, this is the setting for you. Woozle designed this option to minimize any shimmering, and for the most part, I haven't noticed any at all. The only downside is a slightly softer image, but again, it is tough to see unless you are sitting very close to the television set. 5 times integer scaling will fill the entire screen. However, it will crop the top and bottom of the image. This is great for those who want to fill the entire television screen. However, depending on the game, you may run into playability issues since you are missing quite a few rows of pixels on the top and bottom. Some games will work perfectly fine like this, but others may not. And the last setting I want to go over are scan lines. There are 2 overall options. A grid overlay to simulate the original Game Boy Advance screen, and standard CRT scan lines reminiscent of retro home consoles. Both the grid overlay and standard scan lines have varying levels of intensity. I think it is awesome that this was included, and they are very well executed. However, for me, I prefer to leave them off. As far as the other picture settings are concerned, like I mentioned earlier, Bob of Retro RGB conducted a great video featuring Woozle where they go over all these settings in great detail. I recommend you check that out for a deeper explanation of all the settings available on this kit. Again, I'll have it linked down below. Okay, now going back to the main menu, let's take a look at the system settings. The first one is DVI Plus. This is great as it modifies the DVI video stream to also include audio. Unfortunately, compatibility will vary depending on your home setup. I was able to get it working on my main television, and I have to say it's fantastic. However, I was not able to get it working on my Elgato capture card, so I had to turn this mode off. The next option is 60Hz mode, which runs the GBA at the stock clock frequency. This is mostly intended for speedrunning purposes, so again, I will most likely not be using it. The swap button feature allows you to change the action button configuration from AB to YB, which could be preferred by some. And lastly, here you can see the save settings option. Once you have your settings dialed in the way that you want them, you'll have to select this option. You only have to do it once, and your settings will be retained even after you turn the console off. Now, something that is really awesome is that the GBA Consolizer has Game Detect and will remember the settings for both Game Boy Advance as well as the original Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. Since these settings will most likely be different, it's great that Woozle added the Game Detect feature and the ability to remember those settings for both game profiles. Great, so now that we're familiar with all the functionality of this kit, let's go over the pros and cons. Starting with the pros, I have to say the gaming experience this kit provides is absolutely stellar. Using the GBA Consolizer is like experiencing the Game Boy Advance library all over again. It's absolutely fantastic. The lagless gameplay again enhances the overall experience thanks to the incredible work that Woozle has done with the FPGA. Truly remarkable. And lastly, the shell is absolutely fantastic. The snap fit design is really awesome, and of course the quality of the print is what we've come to expect from Laser Bear Industries. Overall, just a fantastic fit and finish. Also, these kits are by and large readily available. There is a bit of a lead time, but you can place your order on these right now at the GameTech US website, which I'll have linked down below. Now, while there is a lot to love about this kit, there are a few cons, so let's quickly go over those. First, as I demonstrated, this is a pretty difficult installation. Flex cable installs like this are quite difficult and require a degree of experience with soldering. Thankfully, there are a few recommended installers for those wary of tackling this mod on their own. They can be found listed on the GameTech US website, which again I'll have linked down below. Additionally, these kits are a bit expensive. Starting at $160 for just the kit, adding a case increases the price by a minimum of $40 for a total of $200. The custom Game Boy button cover is an additional $5 if you want that as well. So the Consolizer build that I showed you in this video will run you about $205, not including the donor Game Boy Advance. There is a version of the Consolizer kit dubbed the Facehugger, which utilizes the GBA's original shell, but has a module that sits where the LCD used to be. This is roughly $25 cheaper at about $175. But for me, I really do like the full case. And the last con has to do with the DVI Plus setting. Unfortunately, this setting doesn't run on my capture card, so for those of you who want to stream GBA content, you may need to pipe in audio from the 3.5mm headphone jack. This is a minor inconvenience which you may run into depending on your HDMI capture device. I, however, had no issues at all running this on my main home theater setup, so this isn't much of an issue for me. So, bottom line, if you're a huge GBA fan, I think this is one of the best ways to enjoy the library, and I absolutely love playing them on the big screen. And I think for what it is, the price is certainly worth it. Anyway guys, that about does it for this video. I think this Consolizer kit is one of the best Game Boy Advance mods out there. If you have any questions about this kit, let me know down below in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps me and the channel out. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Until then, see you all next Thursday.